Say bye.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Tea Inspired. And today we want to look at the topic peace of mind. Yes, when you hear the term peace of mind, you may be thinking about a place, peace of contentment, when nothing now bother you, mentally, everything goes good. And peace of mind can be achieved differently based on the individual because we all have different needs. For example, peace of mind can be achieved by someone who finally start living outside of paycheck to paycheck, or that person who finally have this sink fixed. Boy, when the rain fall on your zinc roof, oh my gosh, peace of mind. Or when the bills finally pay the school fee, finally pay, the children come home from school, peace of mind can be achieved in different ways because we have different needs, priorities. Okay, so today let's talk about a higher level of peace, a greater level of peace, a peace that only God can give us. That Philippians 4 and verse 7 peace.
And the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Jesus Christ.
Notice how it speaks about passing all understanding. And you may ask, how will we even know we have it if we won't understand it? First of all, this peace is very unique. We will all get to see it in action. But if we don't have that peace that God gives us, we will see it and don't understand it. Because guess what? Even those who are experiencing it will sometimes not understand it. And that's the thing about having peace of mind when it's given to you by God. The peace that God gives us, it does not work like normal. For example, if you want to experience the peace of the rain falling on your roof, you have to be home. The rain would have to be falling, and you'd have to have a roof. Yeah, man, you'd definitely have to have a roof. A zinc one preferably. But with God, He doesn't wait on things to fall into place in order for you to experience that peace. In fact, sometimes it is when things are out of sort, out of whack, not going how it is supposed to go, that we experience this peace that I'm talking about.
Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid.
It will take away all our troubles and the reason for us to be afraid. And what he said, if we are obedient to God, He will provide us with the ability to be at peace regardless of the season. And that is because regardless of the season, God will be with us. Yeah? No matter what we're going through, we can have a peace of mind knowing that God is working it out, have worked it out, and we are within His plan. For example, let me share a personal testimony. I remember when I was witnessing my house burning down. What I did, I stood there and I watched the persons were pushing away their cars from too close to the house because the heat was so intense. The heat was so intense that it melted the pots. Got when all was said and done, or when all was wet and the fire out, I got to that point where I could look in and see the aftermath. And the pots were melted. That was how much the heat was. And I stood there for about 2 minutes and I was watching and I saw persons crying. One of my coworkers, she was crying. I saw persons in the community coming up to me and they were apologizing, saying sorry for your loss. And you know what I did? I went back to work and I finished my shift. And when my shift was finished, I went to the house. Everybody was quiet because, you know, obvious. And when I went back to the house, I walked up to where the door was supposed to be, and I took out my key, held it in my hand, and I said, well, looks like I don't need this to go in now. And everybody started laughing. In that moment, when I turned and left to go back to work, they were when I was at work, persons were coming and they were like, wait, I know for your house round there, so I burned down. It was in the process of burning down. And I was at work. They couldn't understand it. And to be honest, I didn't understand it either. But there was so much peace, so much contentment. I was I was not feeling what I was supposed to feel in that moment that I was supposed to feel it, because I didn't feel and like I lost anything, and the only thing I had left on was the clothes on my back and the shoes on my feet that I wore to work. That was the only thing I had. But somehow I felt, I just knew that God would provide, that God had everything under control. And you know what? Ironic, I always like to share this when I share this testimony. The ID and the TRN was saved, and my Bible was saved from the fire. The Bible was at church. I left it there the Sunday. And the plastic ID and TRN miraculously survived, and the pots didn't. So I could still do business according to the law of the land, and I had my Bible. God was just there with me through that season, through that time. And here I am today. That was the peace of God. Can I explain it? I wouldn't know how to. That is why I agree with the scripture that it passes all understanding. You'll experience it, but you won't necessarily understand it. You just know that that is God. Let's look at Philippians 4 and verse 6.
Verse 6, be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be known unto God.
You notice how it tells us that we're supposed to give thanks before we make the request? That is because, again, the peace that God gives us, it no normal. Because normally we would give thanks after the fact. You give somebody something, they say thanks after they receive that thing. But with God, He's saying, you can go ahead and tell me thanks. Why? Because the God that we serve already know of what our need is. Yeah? So by the time we even ask, we would already sort out the thing. We just have to ask. And when we understand this, then giving thanks before we receive something from God won't be a big deal. Yeah? It won't. And like I said before, the conditions does not have to be right in order for us to experience this peace. For example, the Hebrew boys, Daniel in the lion's den, Job, when they were going through, the Hebrew boys, the heat did turn upon them, literally, and they still had peace of mind. They were confident that whether they lived through this ordeal or they died because of it, God was still in control. Daniel, I never hear no story saying that I try to get away. He went with them, they put him down in the den. Job, it may look like Job never had any peace while he was going through, but pay attention to the fact that Job was so content while going through that he said, naked I came into this world, and naked I will go. He said to his wife when she said, curse God and die, you speak like a foolish woman. Why? Because Job was experiencing the peace of God, even in that situation that he was in. He still knew that it was better to have God than anything else in the world. These men, they kept their integrity. They kept their faith in God, even though they were going through trials, even they were going through tribulation, crosses as we call it. Yeah. We, when we're experiencing God's peace in our life, we will handle things differently. Yeah. It's like the scripture speaks about the tree that is planted by the rivers of waters, that when the drought comes, not if the drought comes, but when the drought comes, the leaves will not wither. Because what you know about a drought is that everywhere is dry. So that tree, the natural response for that tree would be to dry up, to wither. But the word says it will not. That's what the peace of God looks like in our life. The enemy may want us to cry, but God will have us laughing, happy, content. Trust God. Trust God that He will take you through. And if we do this, if we are obedient, nothing according to the scriptures will be able to separate. Nothing will be able to separate us from the love of God. Full stop. So until then, walk saved, stay saved. And whatever you do, if you're not saved, get saved. Jesus love you. Pass it by.